Association's annual residents meeting. We are delighted to have you here tonight as we share some important updates and celebrate some community successes. So some announcements. First, we are extremely proud to report that our annual fundraiser, the Sip and Savor, was a tremendous success. Thanks to, wait a minute. Thanks to your generosity, we raised over $17,000 to support Urban Peaks and the Ross Cherry Creek Branch Library. Now is when you get excited. Dale and Jane and their committee worked tirelessly, and they're already working on next September's fundraiser. Last night, our popular Dines Out event was held, and thanks to Kate and Doug for their organizing events. Apparently, I had a meeting, but it was a delicious, well-attended meeting. So stay tuned, because now we're just getting started. Now we're going to look at what we're going to call pop-ups, which are going to be events in the neighborhood and in the businesses, just kind of like quick notices, and invite you to a coffee conversation or a happy hour. Speaking of happy, as you look around the room, we have in Cherry Creek North over 20 social clubs, and we're very proud of them. These groups serve as a foundation for building lasting relationships and are truly a testament for our community. I would love for our coordinators to stand up, and we're going to embarrass them by giving them a round of applause. All the coordinators, and we have 7 new coordinators this year. All right, be brave, stand up. There's more of you. They really make this neighborhood active and are passionate ambassadors. The nomination committee is pleased tonight to present Ginnie Eldredge for our open board seat that's focused on communication. Ginnie brings a valuable experience. She's managed campaigns, directed communications at both the national and state level. She previously served as chief of staff for U.S. Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell. Wow. She offered a range of innovative communication strategies during the interview process. Now, as a resident, you're a general member, and you're entitled to vote for that open seat. So the people that are here, we're going to ask you to raise your hand. People online, we're going to ask you to do yes or no, because it's pretty hard to get a pulse online of what people are. So all in favor of Ginnie Eldredge becoming a member of the Cherry Creek Board of Directors, please raise your hand. Our vice president in the back is going to make sure we have a majority. Well, that was pretty obvious. And Doug online. Ginnie, I'm going to embarrass you right off. Would you just stand up so we can welcome you? Enjoy tonight, because I'll call you tomorrow about some communication ideas. We wouldn't talk about communication. We'd like to acknowledge the passionate voices that brought focus into our neighborhood around the General Improvement District. Your voices played a critical, vital role in the shaping of that outcome. Moving forward, we believe it's essential to strengthen our commitment to actively engage with residents. Effective communication remains critical and central to our efforts. It promotes mutual understanding, ensures that open dialogue leads our neighborhood forward. Our board has a renewed focus on ensuring this is at the heart of our focus. But it takes all of us, not just a board. So I want to encourage you tonight to think of some options for you to be involved. Serving on committees. Those committees help guide our neighborhood forward. Suggesting topics for our quarterly meetings. In fact, someone where is she? Stand up. I'm going to put her right on the spot. She said, Linda, Can we just sometimes come together and just talk about topics that are important to us? That is our plan moving forward, so thank you. She was ahead of it. As you can see from the social groups, coordinators and planning our events are really critical. And with our passion around communication, but we need to hear from you. Follow us on our Facebook page, Instagram page, our website. Send us ideas for articles. Doug is our master for catch-up, and the catch-up comes out the first week of every month. So the more we hear from you, the more that helps us understand what are the key topics that are going on in the neighborhood. Speaking of key topics, I have a special guest tonight. I want to introduce you to a woman I met this week, walked into her store, a show of hands, to purchase some thank you cards. And Katie was there and found the perfect thank you cards that I needed. I left that store with a new friend and a deeper understanding of her story as a small business owner. I've asked her to come and share her story with you tonight. Please help me welcome Katie, whose love for this neighborhood will be evident in her story and her passion. Katie? She's a little bit nervous. Here, lean on this. I'm a lot nervous.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
See, that's Sally.
Yes, this might be my biggest irrational fear standing in front of a group of people, so please bear with me. Yes, better. Okay, is that better, everyone? Okay. So my name's Katie Friedland. A little bit about me. I'm a single mother of a freshman in college. I'm a cancer survivor and the owner of Show Hands for the last 14 years. Show of Hands, or as I refer to it as my happy place, has been located in Cherry Creek North for over 46 years, with 4 moves, 2 that I was a part of, surviving a global pandemic and an ever-changing landscape. I guess you could say we are both pretty resilient. Yeah. Show of Hands is currently located at 2nd and Fillmore, and this location is supposed to be the best one ever. Located in the middle of Cherry Creek North, next to the busiest Starbucks in Colorado, so I've been told, and across from what is supposed to be an 8-story building built by Antero, an oil and gas company coming from downtown, and a restaurant and pub on a lower level set to open in August of this year. Once I moved, an unexpected delay happened, pushing the opening until January of 27. I don't have the financial backing of a big business to help me get through the construction delay. Think of it this way. I'm trying to land a 777 on a 727 runway. I have done everything I can to outcreate the situation, including being up here speaking to everyone, which I told you is one of my biggest irrational fears, and renting out my basement to offset the cost of the store. I love Cherry Creek North. I wouldn't put my store anywhere else. Neighborhoods can either be thriving or dying. Cherry Creek North is thriving. I'm gonna pause for a second. We have to keep a positive message when we speak about Cherry Creek North. When we speak negatively about the construction or parking, it impacts businesses, especially businesses like mine. Now more than ever, it is vital that we speak proudly and loudly about Cherry Creek North and everything that it has to offer. I often hear customers talk about remember when, but we need to focus on now. As a cancer survivor, I love to remember when I didn't have cancer, but that's not how life works. Life works best when we focus on what we have, and Cherry Creek North is a fantastic neighborhood full of small businesses waiting to be discovered and rediscovered. I am asking for everyone to come out and support my small business and others, but especially mine. So Show of Hands doesn't become a remember when. Working in this neighborhood for over 25 years, I didn't come this far to only come this far. Show of Hands is a staple in Cherry Creek North. It's not just 4 walls and a door. It's a magical place where I create memories and bring community together. It's a place where I have moments with people and lasting memories. It's so much more. It's my life. It's my other child. It is my soul. And today I'm asking the community to please come and show up for Show of Hands. Again, this is so out of my element. I invite all of you to come in and visit me. Come to my happy place where I can be so much more relaxed and answer questions and talk to you like a normal human being. And you can see why Show of Hands is such a happy place. Oh, and if you have a dog, definitely bring your dog. I appreciate your time and thank you for giving me this chance.
You caught that ending about the dog? Our thank you for her treats. She gives treats. She has treats for the dogs when they come in.
Thank you, guys.
Katie, thank you. The question I get most walking around this neighborhood is, so what's happening on Milwaukee or Adams or Detroit? Well, tonight, we have presenters that will give you the background, current information, and we're going to start with our return honored guest, Nick LeMasters, CEO and President of the Business Improvement District. Nick, welcome.
Thank you, Linda. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Nick.
Always nice to see so many familiar faces when I come to these meetings. Well, except maybe for Jim. I'm teasing. Well, thank you. I was asked to speak tonight about what's happening in this district. And as I've told many people, Cherry Creek North within the BID is a little messy right now. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
It's a little messy. And I think of it as progress. I think of it as a neighborhood that is extraordinary in so many different ways. And we've looked across the United States of America, and there's nowhere in the country where you have a super regional fortress mall like the shopping center, which I had the privilege of running for 23 years, successfully coexisting across the street from the open air village. It doesn't exist anywhere. Usually it's one or the other. The malls are usually located at the intersections of major interstates. This is a shopping center that isn't located by any interstate. And here it is existing well with this beautiful outdoor village. 6 years ago, I came across the street. I increased my commute by 1 block. That was okay. And I was telling some folks this morning, I'm not sure if I came from the dark side or to the dark side. And then someone said, they're both bright sides, and I completely agree with that. It's a privilege to be in Cherry Creek and to be able to feel like we're contributing something meaningful. When I came here, it was November of 2019, I was concerned about the district, concerned about the conditions that I saw, and I'd always been an observer of the district, as you might imagine, coming from across the street, because the shopping center has limited dining options, so I'd come over to Cherry Creek North and dine here with regularity. And I was really concerned about the condition of the district and what I saw as really an opportunity to revive this place. And I like to think that we have an extraordinary team who has just done yeoman's work. As I was driving over to the school tonight, I saw our vendor putting up the Christmas lights, which is always exciting. I love what we've done with the landscape. I love what we're doing with some of our marketing and events. And hopefully you've had a chance to experience some of that. I love the holiday market, and they'll be back again this year. And so I really am proud of the work that our team has done to really bring life to this neighborhood. But while all that's going on, we have this messiness to deal with. And I want to talk a little bit about that because there's a lot that we do. We have I'll say sometimes we have handcuffs on us. I wish we had a little bit more control sometimes than we currently have. But there's a lot that we do. When we find out about a project, we engage with that developer as soon as we can get our hands on them. We want to get in front of those people and let them know of what our priorities are. And we put in front of them books like these. This is a very robust book of compliance standards for construction. And we put this in front of them. We meet with them very early on and say, these are the expectations. You're going to be part of this district. This is a chance for you to really make a mark for yourself, but we want you to be a good neighbor and remember that there are certain standards for construction in the district. And then once they get going, Then we put this book in front of them, Streetscape Design Standards and Guidelines. And so we really do have robust conversations with these folks to make sure that they're really integrating with the neighborhood. One of the things we will always remind the development community, Cherry Creek North was the very first neighborhood in Denver to be designated as a pedestrian priority zone. There have been others since, but this was the first, and that's something that we take a tremendous amount of pride in. And we want to make sure that we continue to honor that designation, and it's becoming more and more difficult when you walk up a sidewalk and you have to cross a street, and you go up another block, and you have to cross the street again. Someone said it's a little like playing Pac-Man in real life, going through Cherry Creek North right now. But one of the things we try to do is make sure that we honor the pedestrian experience as best we can. Just as an example of that, on Milwaukee, there are 2 projects going on right now. We have a residential project at the old 299 building, which is now gone, as you see, and across the street, an office building going up. And we fought aggressively to make sure that we had a north-south pedestrian walkway. So whether it's north-south, east-west, doesn't matter, people should be able to come up and down the street or wherever they're going without having to go around the block. And we really fight aggressively and make sure that our voice is heard. Once the developers get involved with the city and they submit their plans, and Olga's going to talk a little bit about the process that we go through, we have the Design Advisory Board. And I have to tell you, I met with Brad Buchanan last week, and I was asking him about the Design Advisory Boards. There's only a handful of DABs in the entire city. And his comment to me was, every Design Advisory Board should be modeled after the Cherry Creek DAB because it operates beautifully. To be able to sit in the room and have a bunch of architects talk to one another. Imagine, here's an architect presenting their project in front of their competitors. That's what happens. And the respectfulness and the honor in which they give one another is extraordinary. And I absolutely believe that Cherry Creek North gets better projects. These architects, some of which are world renowned, have done great work. And then these other architects add just that little bit of frosting on the cake just to make them as great as we can. And it's why the neighborhood is as beautiful as it is because we have these great projects. But it's extraordinary to be in that room. The Cherry Creek North BID does not have a vote in that room, but I like to think we have influence. And the perspective that we try to bring to the DAB is the voice of the consumer, the voice of the neighborhood, the voice of the pedestrian, to say, if you do X, this is what could happen. And so we try to always bring that perspective to the conversation. While the design experts are talking about datums and all sorts of language I've never heard before, I literally look up these words as we're talking. Go online and say, what's a datum? So I'm not an architect, so I want to know what these things are. But we want to make sure that the voice of the customer is heard loud and clear. And that's really the role that the BID plays in that meeting. And I like to think we have some great influence on what happens there. It's not always easy, that's for sure. Developers will push the envelope as hard and fast as they can. And that's where sometimes we have to just weigh in and say, hey, time out. And I like to remind people, we are a business improvement district. We're not there to hold up the process. We want these buildings to get approved. We want them to get built. We want them to get open as fast as we can. And so we don't want to ever be an impediment to that. But we do have to make sure that your voice is heard. And that's really the representation that we try to bring to those meetings. Once those buildings happen, and it's always interesting, so it's never quite as impactful when the core and shell are being built. The real impact comes when the tenant finish takes place. Now, why is that? Well, that's when the plumbers come in, the electricians come in, the drywallers come in, the furniture people come in, and it has a greater impact. And that's where our focus begins to shift, and we shift it toward parking. It's probably our biggest headache, even to this day. And I reminded the group I was with this morning, I said, do you have any idea how many parking spaces there are at the mall? Any idea? 5,000 parking spaces at the mall. Okay. How many parking spaces do you think there are in Cherry Creek North?
500.
5,000, and nobody knows it.
No.
That's partly our responsibility. We're not getting that message out. And next year, you're going to see a very robust signage program that we'll be implementing to direct people to garages and places that they might not ordinarily want to park. The challenge we have is that everyone wants to park in that spot in front of that restaurant. And, am I right? That's exactly what happens. And so what they'll do is they'll circumnavigate the block a few times and wait for someone to pull out when they could have just as much easier pull into a garage, which are very safe, and get on their way and enjoy their dining experience or their shopping experience or whatever it is they're wanting to accomplish here. So that's when our parking enforcement begins, is once these developers get the building up and all those new trades come in, that's where the real impact of parking is. And we're pretty aggressive about it. We have a full-time public safety officer who is just simply looking to find those developers who aren't playing by the rules. Here's the rule book. And so for the most part, I have to say, we have a group of development companies and construction companies who've been very, very cooperative, and we play a little hardball with them sometimes and say, hey, look, if we have to, we'll go to the city and have you shut down. That's not something we want to do. And they don't like to hear that at all, because the people who finance these projects want them open quickly and done well. And so we start to focus on the parking challenges. Many of the folks are now parking over at the shopping center, which is fine. We have no problem with that if it keeps them off our streets and allows for our customer to have a more enjoyable experience. Then we're doing the right thing. So, we're aggressively pursuing that, and we'll continue to do so all the time. So that's how we get involved in all this. I can tell you that with everything that's going on, you haven't seen the end of it. We have a number of projects. There's a number of transactions that have taken place over the last few months, some of which you may have heard about. But you look at, for example, you look on Clayton, and soon you're going to see Forget-Me-Not come down, and the building that Alpine Investments is going to be embarking on just north of the Cricket is going to be starting right across the street. Bro Real Estate is going to be starting their project. The Cherry Creek Dance site has sold. We expect to see some movement there. The building that Orvis is in, Orvis is having their going out of business sale. BMC has purchased that building as well. Of course, you know about Cherry Lane, the BMC project there, the two on Milwaukee. I could go on and on. And when I walk the district, I'm always looking at these buildings thinking that's probably going to be the next development site. Now, why is that? Well, the zoning permits it. And many of you may have been involved when the zoning changed back in 2014, and it created a new place here in Cherry Creek. There's no question about it. But it's a place that is being recognized nationally, and a brand that people are starting to realize is something that is worth visiting and worth enjoying. And so there's still more to come. I suspect construction will end when all the old buildings are gone, and that's not going to be for a little while. So the land value is very, very high. The developer's paying a ton of money for this dirt, taking the old buildings down, but they're able to make them pencil, and it's extraordinary. And it's a challenge in that, I look at someone like Katie Friedland, and Show of Hands, which she knows is one of my favorite stores on earth, because I take care of my wife through you, don't I? She takes good care of me. And those are the stores we want to see succeed. The mall, the greatest national, international retailers. Cherry Creek North, the greatest concentration of local retail anywhere in Colorado. And that's a message that we continue to perpetuate and get out into the marketplace. So we're certainly proud of what we are, what we have been, but we're also proud of what we will become. So there's a lot more to go on in the future. So thank you for the time tonight. Glad to be with you as always. If there's anything we can do with the bid, please feel free to reach out to us. Virginia.
My question is, I think a lot of the parking issues are with parallel parking. Is it reasonable to put lines in? Because people will park 5 and 6 feet apart, and it just limits the number of parking spaces.
As you know, we had meters in every site. They've been pulled, and now we have these little signs.
Yes.
We're arguing with the city that we need to at least have some delineation on the pavement, because we're not putting as many cars into the right-of-way as we could. We think we're losing some parking that way. So, good call. Yeah. Are we open to questions, Linda?
Yeah, a couple minutes.
Yeah, of course. Yes, sir.
You mentioned.
Want to use this? Come on.
You mentioned parking regulations. You didn't say what they were. I'm curious about construction parking in residential neighborhoods. I know we have, and in most areas, there's like a quarter of a block that is, you can park forever. So every day we have people coming up across the street from us, they put on their vests at 6 in the morning and they go to work. And I see people that want to go shopping coming up all the way to 5th. Instead of being able to park closer, I'm imagining that more construction people are parking everywhere. I did see a couple people, construction people, based on the vest, walking over to the lot over by the shopping center. But what are the regulations for parking, construction parking in the neighborhoods?
This much I can tell you. The last place, matter of fact, I wouldn't even say the last place, we never direct construction parking into the neighborhood. We just know that's just not something that's welcome. So we push them to the shopping center, we push them into the garages, and that's part of our upfront meetings that we have.
You push them?
We encourage them. We encourage them to stay out of the neighborhoods because all they're going to do is antagonize the folks that live there. So we really discourage anybody from parking in the neighborhood. And it's just not the right thing to do. And so we tell them, we give them lots of options. We don't just say you can't park there. We say here's where you can park. And that's the direction and the guidance we give them. We give that to the general contractor. Again, as I said earlier, it's a little easier when you're building core and shell because they control all of that. The GC doesn't necessarily control the trades when they come into those buildings. It's more difficult to do so when all the trades come into those buildings and start doing the tenant finish work. But we never push people or encourage people to park in the neighborhood, ever. We don't want to see that. We think it's an imposition on all of you. But we tell them where they can park. But as far as regulations, we have no regulatory authority at the bid, unfortunately.
What's in your pamphlet about this?
This book tells them where they can park. It tells them where not to park.
They have to file a parking plan.
Thank you.
Every GC.
Yeah, every general contractor has to come to us with a parking plan. And if they're not abiding by that plan, we go back to that general contractor and say, hey, look, you're not playing by the rules. And there have been moments where the city has been supportive and have threatened to shut down a project if they don't get it under control. And so that's the last absolute resort. We don't want to see that happen. But again, as I said earlier, sometimes we got to play a little hardball with these folks.
How active
Terry?
is the ticketing with the 2-hour limit in the neighborhood? Is that fixed?
Well, is it 2 hours in the neighborhood? I can't speak to that. There's 3 hours in the district.
No, it's 2 hours.
It's 2 hours and 3 hours, but construction guys can't come back and move the cars.
No, but I will tell you this. We have heard stories of folks who just, they don't care about the $25 ticket. They just don't care. And they ignore it, and maybe they pay them, maybe they don't. I don't know, I'll leave that to the courts. But again, we have no influence on that. We're trying to make sure that the businesses remain viable, remain open, and parking is part of that within the
Can
district.
we have influence, can we have more ticketing? Because I don't think construction workers are going to pay, if it's one ticket at 11 o'clock and another ticket at 3 o'clock, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
I think there's one way we can make it very uncomfortable for them. What control do we have over that?
I would say you have to control this. Your control comes in the way of making sure that your voice is heard, that your city council member is hearing from you, and that they too are working with the city to encourage or discourage that kind of parking from going on. The reality though is this, it's not illegal for them to do that. So we have to keep that in mind.
So they for them to stay more than 3 hours.
That is correct, and that's when the ticketing occurs, right? But unfortunately, we just don't have any influence beyond the boundaries of 3rd Avenue. Terry?
How are you, Nick?
Well, thank you. You?
Good, thanks.
Good to see you.
2 questions. First of all, is there a restaurant going in the new high-rise right behind Cherry Creek Grill?
There is likely going to be a restaurant there. That is a full timber building. I'm sorry, you said Cherry Creek Grill. I'm sorry.
Cherry Creek Grill, yeah.
I'm not going to answer that question
Yes.
because we have someone who's going to answer that question for you. Or maybe you won't. I understand that there is going to be a restaurant, probably a name that won't be announced until they sign get a lease. So.
Coming soon.
I'm sorry, when you said Cherry Creek Grill, my head went right to the Cherry Cricket.
Yeah.
And Alpine Investments is doing that building there. Pure timber build, it's going to be a beautiful building. And they will have a restaurant.
And then the other one is Kachina Calora. I
Yes.
keep hearing conflicting things about that building.
That building has sold. There is under new ownership. That owner has said that he's going to land bank that building. He's not trying to get anybody out of that building. But you have to think that at some point in time, why do you buy that building? You want that density. So 4 stories against the street, 3, and then 2 against the neighborhood. Timing is, questionable. I don't know when that's going to happen. I just know that I really love the Mista salad at Ginnie Eldredge. So,
Okay, thank you.
question. All right.
Last question?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to pick up where John left off on the parking. There are sections of many blocks that have free parking. There is no time constraint. It's a situation on Columbine, it's a situation on a lot of the 500 blocks. And it's not just construction workers, there's a lot of people that are waiters. And the reason why they're parking there, it's free. And they can be there all day and they're not going to pay. Because one of the problems with parking in Cherry Creek is it's pretty expensive.
So I'm going to get you off the hook and say,
You're okay.
just so you know, both Lou and Annette have been working with the city for over 3 years, trying to get them to take enforcement of the parking seriously. And you'll see the new guidelines that we put on our website, so check that out. It's an ongoing discussion. Again, for 3 years, they've been meeting and trying to get the city to take it seriously. And to your point, until they enforce it, all we can do is keep putting it in front of them and putting it in front of them, unfortunately.
Well, these sections aren't.
I know.
I want to give you one last piece, and then I'll give the mic back to Linda here. One of the big challenges that we have in Cherry Creek North is the fact that we have a number of people in the service industry, the folks that work behind the cash register, who work in the restaurants, who make the beds and clean the rooms. Many of them are parking on the street. And so what do they do on their break? They go out, they move their car. Okay? So they're paying those on-street rates, if you will. The mobility situation in Cherry Creek North is a disaster. RTD is completely underserving this neighborhood, and we have a real challenge that the folks who are making nice incomes, and there are many who are, they're taking their car to work, and they're probably getting their parking paid for by their employer. On the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum are those folks who are working in the service industry who have lousy bus service, and one of the things that we're working with Transportation Solutions on are micro-transit options. How do we make it so that, I like to say, we need more employees, we need more customers, we don't need more cars in Cherry Creek North. So how do we use micro-transit, how do we use technology to get them here? Because those folks don't live near here. They live in Aurora, they live in the Federal Corridor, they live in Glendale. They don't live near here because they can't afford that, right? And so they live elsewhere, and yet there's very little mass transit options for them. And so we're working closely with Stuart Anderson, the team at Transportation Solutions, to come up with viable options to get those people here without an automobile. And that way they won't be taking up the street parking either.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
So Nick already gave some of my introduction for the next group, and I think it's that secret organization in this neighborhood that has such a strong impact. It's called the Design Advisory Board, and as Nick said, when you go there, it's like a different language. But all of their meetings are on Zoom, so on Wednesday morning, second Wednesday of each month at 8 a.m. That's the hard part.
Yeah, right.
But it's such an incredible conversation. So please help me welcome David and Ingrid and Olga, and they'll tell you their background. So David and Olga, welcome.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you everyone for inviting us. My name is Olga Mikhailova. I'm a planner for this. Oh, okay. My name is Olga Mikhailova. I'm a planner for City of Denver Community Planning and Development. I have been doing this work, planning cities, improving city neighborhoods for over 30 years now, and working in this district, in this neighborhood, been my most pleasure, and for many, many reasons. And I would like to first introduce David, and then...
Good evening. Thank you all for having us tonight. My name is David Morris. I'm a 28-year architect in the city and county of Denver. So I serve as the chair of the Design Advisory Board. And so that's something I've been doing now for about a little over a year. It's a 3-year term, so it's the first year of my 3, so I'm going to be around a bit. But I think one thing I'd like you all to know of that is 28 years of working as an architect in Denver, I've been a neighbor of yours. At one point in Cherry Creek North, and now I'm over across the way in Hilltop. So I think bring a bit of perspective other than being a designer and an architect, just being a neighbor and understanding the growth of Cherry Creek through the years. You know, I brought my kids to the hot dog stand down on Clayton Street, and you know all the different restaurants. And so I've lived here, watched it grow, and very passionate about this area. So I bring that to the board, which I think is pretty essential.
Thank you, David. So we're going to discuss tonight what is Design Advisory Board and how the city is working together with the neighborhood, with the community. And before we start, I would like to mention, when I went to planning school, we studied for 5 years, a lot of urban design, urbanism, and good planning. But my professor told me, always remember who are your people you're building for. It's the people who live in the neighborhood. Don't use just books, don't use just numbers, because Denver zoning code ensure orderly development for life, health, and welfare of the people who live. But bottom line, what is that? It's what you feel when you walk on the streets, how comfortable, how is the special places. And this cannot be developed, cannot be built by books. You have to really grow into this, and you have to use neighborhood voice and listen neighborhood. So the background, you can switch next. The background, some of you probably know more than I am. I moved to Denver area in 1998, and the first place I stopped was Cherry Creek North, and I remember Thunder Cover. I enjoy every weekend in Thunder Cover, and then it's been changed a lot since that. And some of you remember, maybe in 1999, there was a plan put together for Cherry Creek Shopping Center, and there was a design document that many of us don't remember, but it still exists, it's still on the books, and we still use it in the city. It's dated 1999, and it's related to how development of a shopping center would be when a new building or new addition is added. And since that, as we heard, Cherry Creek North rezoning happened in 2012, 2014. There was upscale, there was new zoning allow more density. And to make sure that density will grow without a negative impact to neighborhood, the city put together a new design standards. It's a quality standard. It's not quantitative, like how many stories, how big the footprint could be. It's a quality. How it should be built so that people feel welcome and that small village feel it will not lost. As Nick mentioned, it's a village. We would like to keep that feel of a village, even though it's a high-density village. So, and I want to mention that in 2025, this document was updated. As many of you probably know, Cherry Creek West, the development across First Avenue, will be also part of review by this district and this design board. So this is not only documents the city is using when we review new plans, new development. We have many documents, including some documents which is not part of the city. As Nick mentioned, the BID put together a few documents, construction standards or streetscape standards, and we, together with our partners agency, working together to make sure that neighborhood will be developed in an orderly way, in enhancing every development will be making this neighborhood better. Go ahead. We're also in the city working on the many plans. We have a large group of our planners in the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. They're looking how to improve. Nick mentioned again how difficult to sometimes cross the street, how you would like to keep it pedestrian. And I am advocating with the Department of Transportation that currently standards for Cherry Creek is only 5-foot minimum sidewalk. As we know, 5-foot minimum sidewalk in Cherry Creek North is just not adequate, it's too narrow. So we're working with the transportation engineers, make sure that the sidewalks will support the density and walkable community of this neighborhood. And then, as you mentioned, we have a 3 sub-area. The newest one, sub-area 3 for Cherry Creek West. And what design board reviews? Design board reviews any new construction, any major development, also tenant finish, and also we review signages. So this is really a partnership. We as a city receive application for development, we're processing, making sure it's adequate information, and then the applicant brings it to design board. And what I would like to mention, this is not just two entities who review it. We want to work with neighborhood, we want to work with you. All meetings available on the website, agenda placed on the website. If you have any questions, anything, please reach us, and you are welcome to attend meetings. We are on Teams, you can meet virtually with us, you can call us, you can ask additional information. We want to hear from you, so I highly encourage it. Okay. So this is really what I mentioned. This is a three pilot. Zoning review is ensure that development meet Denver zoning code. We have also urban design review performed by city staff, and design advisory board, who is David represent, he's the chair of the board. They review the professional architects, landscape architects, retailers from the neighborhood. They provide to the staff is advice. Is that aligned with what the vision for the neighborhood, for the district? And the staff is using this advisory board to make a final decision. And these meetings are open to public. Again, I want to stress the public voice, the public input is very important, and we encourage you to always welcome to let us know what do you think about new developments. So this is a page where you can go to Cherry Creek North Design Advisory Board, just Google it, it will take you to this page. There is an agenda for each meeting, there is contact, how to reach us, and there's meeting minutes, and please feel free to reach us if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Olga. That was So I wanted to just talk a little bit more specifically about the board, what we do, how we're organized, and really what the spirit is behind what our support is of the district, of the neighborhoods, of the developers, and of all the applicants that come in and present to the review board. The board is a mayor-appointed position, so we all, if you are interested in being a member of the board, you actually apply. You apply just like you're getting ready to go to college again. You do a bit of a thesis and why you think you would be appropriate to be on the board and what you feel like you could contribute to the process. And that is reviewed, and then we actually interview. We interview for the position. So the board is not a regulatory group. I want to make sure that that's very clear. We are an advisory group. And so we really act as an advocate for projects that are being developed, an advocate for the applicants, the owners, the developers, the city, and as Olga mentioned several times, and Nick as well, for the bid and for the neighbors. We want to keep all those clients in mind as we're going through and doing our reviews on the projects that come through the district. We really feel strongly as a group that buildings exemplify our values, right? So, the quality of the construction, the design, the materiality, that's stuff that we look at because we think that reflects the importance of the quality and what you want to be as a district. And so, as Nick was mentioning earlier, Cherry Creek North is really held up as one of the most successful urban shopping areas in the country. I participated, there's a group called the Urban Land Institute, which is some of the brightest planners, developers in the US that come together, and they came together in Denver this past May. And so many of the folks that were here were so excited to get down and see Cherry Creek because they had heard so much about the success. They had read about it, they had seen it, but they hadn't been able to be here and walk the streets and really experience it as a pedestrian. So I know you all live here, and so you understand what an amazing place this is, and I think that's part of the legacy that our board really cherishes. We want to make sure that we protect that and ensure that that continues that legacy and that quality that we spoke about earlier. We do want to expedite the process. As Nick was saying earlier, we want to see businesses come in. We want to see them do well and thrive. So we're not here to hold up a process. We're here to help expedite the process for developers and the development of projects for their design teams. But we also have to calibrate that and balance that with making sure that the standards are upheld as we move forward. You can build a bad building and it's bad for a lot of years. So we want to really do our best to protect against that. And again, we're not a regulatory group, but we give advice. And where we get that advice is from experience. A lot of us have practiced in the district and have built before or developed here for many years. So that gives us that experience, and I think that knowledge base that's really essential to help support development as it's in the district. I mentioned before our clients, and we take this very seriously. We feel like we have several clients. The Business Improvement District is a client of ours. The city, certainly, Olga and I are quite partners. We talk all the time about projects and what's going on in the district. And not only in our monthly meetings that we have, we're constantly strategizing on things that we think are important to the district, how to bring those up in our meetings, how to support what the important things are that are going on down here. Certainly the neighbors, and when you think about neighbors, it's not just the single residential neighborhoods that are around the area. You think about all the density that's coming in, all the multifamily residential that's coming in to the district. All of those are the neighbors that make up the district in Cherry Creek North. So we have to think about everybody as we're going through this process review on these projects. And then certainly the applicants. So I would say this, and I feel very strongly about this. The applicants generally are developers and designers, and we're here to support them. And I think that what I've noticed, and this is more personal, maybe not a board position, but I think the developers are really raising the bar in Cherry Creek, right? You know, these are long-term holds, these are investments, these are not, you know, develop and flip projects. They are long-term, and so their investments need to be protected. So it's interesting to see how the quality, and I would say, the work that the developers are doing now in the district have really improved, and they continue to push the bar higher and higher because it's really important to protect their investments. So they're pushing each other, and I think you're seeing that in the district. The board makeup, and again, this is a bit of our qualifications. It's made up of architects, landscape architects. There are people that represent property, that are owners in the district. We do have retail representation. And a member of the bid board of directors is also within our group. So it's a pretty good, I think, cross-section of folks that are involved in projects and have been involved in the district for many years. Olga is an ex officio member of the board. She probably carries the most weight out of all of us. She's been doing it so long and serves as an advisor to us. Again, does not vote, but certainly has a strong presence in the room as we move forward on these projects. I think finally what I wanted to touch on again is the experience piece. As a part of the requirement to be on the board, you have to live and in the city and county of Denver. So everybody on the board has a very strong knowledge of your neighborhood and the district, and that's an important part of being a member of the board. As well as, I mentioned this earlier, every one of us, I think to a person, maybe one that has not yet or maybe involved in a project right now, has designed, built, developed in the district. So those, you know, there's no exception for or no leapfrogging experience, you know. So we've all had an experience that we bring to the table that I think helps us be much better at what we're reviewing and how we're supporting the district on the board.
Yes, and what is shown on this slide is how we work with neighbors. Again, there are the standards for public notification for large projects that go through rezoning or things like this. But also, for example, for Cherry Creek Shopping Center, there is official public notification, which is steering committee presentation, as we know now. And for Cherry Creek North part, we do not have a public notification, official notification. But again, we always want to hear what neighbors think about development. You can reach it at any point and preferably early so we can take your voice into consideration. If something is very important for you as the neighbors, you know your district the most. And while, like David mentioned, we all know this district, but we probably don't know it as well as you are. and we would like to hear from you when we're working on the projects. And so while there's no official public notification for new projects, you're always welcome to reach us, ask questions, and we'll be more than happy to provide you with answers. I know on my cell phone I have some neighbors from Laurel condominiums who worry about new projects, and developers as well. I don't know how they get my phone, but and I do answer them even after work hours. So because, and I know some of you, I know we have some questions about some signage, some challenges, and some small businesses. It's sometimes challenging to meet our code. Our code is very rigid. But when we work with developers, who is neighbors, who is property owners, we want to have a win-win. What is good for the neighborhood? What is good for people who work here, who live here, and for the developers as well, because we want to make sure it's successful. Thank you very much for bringing us tonight.
So we have a question. I'm going to read it from the chat. It's been in here a while. It's from a lady called Nancy. I do not know her last name. Why have so many buildings been approved that are all glass exteriors? They're unattractive and increase the street walking temperature for walkers, people eating outside. Are climate issues considered when reviewing a new building? I believe that CCN is beginning to look like a suburban office park and losing most of its charm. I do not believe that, but
Yeah. Nancy, that's a great question. Yeah, I think in reality, it is getting harder and harder to do glass buildings, right? With the model energy codes that we're faced with in society. I think it's a delicate balance. I think that, when developers are developing in the district, they're also thinking about their tenants. And tenants like to have glass with views. And you get up a little high in these areas and you get these wonderful views of the Rocky Mountain Front Range. So I think that's a driving factor. We are aware of the conditions that the glass buildings do have the effect on the street. In fact, just recently, as we were reviewing a project, we asked them as an advisory board to make sure that they had done and could present a glare study coming off the glass and how the sun could get down to the street and what that comfort level would be or not be. So we've asked for that so we can look at that to make sure that we're thinking that through. There are buildings that we have noticed that have been built where the glass facade comes all the way down to the street. Now, the advisory board has learned from those lessons, and you'll see most of the buildings that are being built now, that glass curtain wall doesn't just come down to the street. We asked them to push that back slightly so it prevents from having that glass and reflectivity come down onto the sidewalk. So all this stuff is ongoing, lessons learned that we're applying. And that's kind of what the advisory board does. We say, we know this experience, we've seen what's happened in the district. We ask that you to rethink that and maybe push to get away from some of those challenges that we're feeling in the pedestrian realm. Because it's not just the buildings that are being built down here. We are very concerned about the public realm, the sidewalk, the pedestrian experience within Cherry Creek.
The neighborhood being a neighborhood of families and homes, maybe not families, but anyway, living people. What is your perimeter boundaries on overdeveloping and smothering the living quarters of the people that live here? Have you got any insight into that, or away we go and turn it into Manhattan, New York?
Yeah. Well, you heard it mentioned earlier, zoning will allow for certain development to occur and certain density to occur within the district. That is outside of the advisory board's purview. That is a part of the city and what they do as far as policy. One thing that I would tell you, and I know that is not maybe answering your question specifically, but part of what is required in the Cherry Creek design guidelines is open space. So I don't know if you all, I'm sure you're aware of it, but all buildings, whether you know it or not, there is a requirement for open space, which is a certain percentage of the footprint of the building that needs to be open public space. So that is one thing the city is trying to do, and our advisory board is to encourage those open spaces where it gives relief to the street. It gives these small little parks. And we also, what we can do is encourage that those are activated zones. and that they are public zones or not spaces for the building itself. So those are little things that are happening to help encourage some space in the building with all the density that's being allowed by city policy.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you. That was a perfect segue. Let me introduce Chris. Chris is the second Adams developer. The reason I asked him to come tonight is the residents at Cook and Adams met with the developers before they even put a shovel in the ground. So they're an example of how you bring in the residents in the front end. And I think you'll highlight some of the conversations you had with them. Chris Carroll, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, and thank you all for being here. It's a huge honor for me to be here standing in front of you all today. I first want to say there's a lot of magic that's happening in Cherry Creek North. I know that there's a lot of organized chaos or just chaos. We all recognize that, but there is a lot of really good stuff that's happening in Cherry Creek North. It's certainly not from developers or just real estate guys. It's for the amazing leadership from Nick and Lou, who's been championing the neighbor sentiment and the goals of the neighbors, and working closely with Olga, who has been steadfast in following the design district and design guidelines, and obviously David, who is so passionate and brings so much. So I think it's important first to just recognize that this is such a great organization. The Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association has been great with us, and we're a small company. We're a local company. I walked here. I live 3 blocks away. We are long-term holders. At least that's how we look at every single deal. And that means a lot of things. I mean, it means that when I walk to work, I see the implications of development. I see the challenges it creates. I see the value it brings. I see a lot of the good, and I recognize a lot of the bad. And I think Second and Adams for our company, which is a company of 4 people that are all local, all trying to do good for the community. This is a great project for us as we kind of march into ultimately what we wanted to try to do with the project. The first thing we saw when we were looking at this opportunity back in spring of 22 was the fact that this was just dirt at the time. The building had been demoed. We saw that there was obviously better and higher use than just staring at a fence. So we spent a lot of time internally, but also working with the neighborhood, working with Lou, working with a lot of the stakeholders to figure out where we see a need, where we see value that we can bring vis-a-vis office, given the fact that there was a lot of skyrocketing rent, and we wanted to help deliver the demand for Cherry Creek North because of all the amazing tailwind that's happening in the market. And we also saw a huge opportunity to do something that we're hugely passionate about as developers that care deeply about design, but also activation of space. The last thing that we wanted to do was approach this project in the context of just delivering just an office building. We saw a bigger opportunity to bring in retail, to engage the community through cuisine and food. And what I'm going to show tonight is actually the first time that we will be public with what we are doing with these concepts and why we're so excited about it. So I should have maybe told my partner I was going to do this, but here we go. But yeah, I mean, a lot of, the first step when we go through the pre-development and the neighborhood engagement, as I mentioned, then we call this a neighborhood need analysis. We're not trying to build something that works for us. It needs to work for the neighborhood, and it needs to work for the stakeholders, and we need to take in a lot of the considerations that's on all of your minds. So that is first and foremost how we operate our company. The first thing that we realized in working with Lou is that we absolutely need a good neighbor agreement. We worked very early to understand what the goals of the neighborhood were, some of the problems that have been occurring in the past, and ultimately what the goals of Lou at the time was the keynote representative. But we also wanted this to be a grassroots approach, so we had a meeting in our office before we even started construction to really understand some of the things on the neighborhood's mind. As you all saw, 159 Adams, which was Ed and Tomas, who have become great friends of us. Ed at Eurospa, or Ed at MedSpa, obviously, has been a huge institution in the neighborhood. We knew that they were, looking to maybe think about next steps, so we worked very closely with them on a direct basis. I remember we went out to dinner with Ed and Tomas, and halfway through the dinner, she said I look like her son, so I thought we might have something there. But we worked really closely with what their long-term goals were and how it aligned with their family goals, and we worked with them to basically have what we think has been a really successful execution. We engaged the neighborhood. We engaged everyone in city council to run through a process where we felt that the zoning was in line with our goals, but also that we were recognizing that this was a small speck in the broader Cherry Creek zoning that had not been rezoned. So we just brought it up to compliance, and that was a very careful 12-month process. And through working closely with the city council and the neighborhood stakeholders, we went through and had unanimous approval, which we're incredibly proud of, and I think just speaks to the level of engagement that we had from the city and the neighborhood. And then part of this process was neighborhood meetings. Parking is obviously a hot button in here. We completely recognize that. There's parking implications on people coming not just from the office and also the future restaurants, but also the construction team. Directly, Dan, to answer that question, we put in place an agreement with our general contractor, Boards and Construction, that if we see anyone parking in the neighborhood, we have the ability to fine them. And I walk down 7th Avenue, down Adams, every single day to work, and if I see anyone there, I call our construction team, and they will find these people. And there has been just a few gentlemen that have done it consistently, and they've been towed, and that is on their dime. So we take that incredibly serious. It's not perfect, but it is something that we care about. We recognize it's a nuisance, and we've worked really hard with the Cherry Creek Mall to put in place an allocated parking, and it's just something that I think is the nature of the beast, but it doesn't need to be as bad as it's been, and we are steadfast in our commitment to making sure not just our development, but all future developments that we are a part of or not, work with the community to continue to make that better. But I'm not going to stand up here and say that it's perfect or we have all the answers, but I will say there's a lot of good leadership on the topic, and I do think it is improving, but I recognize it's still a challenge. One of the other things, just as it relates to 2nd and Adams, there is a massive need for a stop sign at 2nd and Adams. And that was something that came up in the neighborhood. That is something that we saw, we had included in our initial underwriting of this site, because for us, this doesn't work if this isn't a safe site. So we have funded, as part of our project, a study where we recorded all of the car counts for over 2 weeks. And we've done that at a few different times. We hired a third-party consultant to help build the case. We've submitted it to the city, and the city has said the car count does not justify a stop sign. So, and that's not all good, to be clear. It's a completely separate entity that does this, and I think I just want to say that this is a format where we can all talk about a way to kind of bind this together. And I think if we can't get a stop sign today before this thing is open, we definitely think that there is a huge opportunity to get one once it is open. And I'm here to tell you that that is a top priority. Maybe we can break into that a little bit at the Q&A, but I do want to say that is still on our radar. We absolutely are going to continue to champion that effort, because we think that the safety, the fact that 2nd and Adams it's the first stop in, people are just going so fast down Second, in that they don't slow down to get to that stop sign right in front of Cherry Creek Grill. And then the second they're past Cherry Creek Grill going east, they are flying out of there. So there is a huge need. We recognize that, and we are still working, and we love your engagement on that as well. Noise. Obviously, this is going to have a restaurant. There's going to be 2 restaurants on the ground floor. There's also going to be a rooftop that will have a restaurant as well. What I will say is we've worked closely with the neighborhood. We've looked at local regulation. We are absolutely going to be compliant with that. And then we have further allocated a lot of noise barriers to make sure that the noise does not become a nuance. Obviously, the noise during construction is on everyone's mind. This isn't Main and Cherry Creek North. This is on the outskirts. We recognize it's part of a neighborhood, community, people's lives are impacted from the noise from construction, but also operation. And it's something that we've worked very closely with the community to make sure, and it's top of mind. Again, we're not looking to sell this thing right at the second we deliver this. We want to be around. We want to be working with everybody and making sure that we're doing right and we're delivering an amenity, but doing it in a way that is helpful to everybody, and people know that we're serious about that. Truck routes. I know everyone loves trucks that are hauling off 1,000 loads of dirt. I think we had 70,000 acres of dirt, which as a developer, I still have no idea what that means. But that is a lot of trucks. And we have been successful in continuing to work with Lou and her team to push these out of Cherry Creek North to as much as possible, and then try to minimize the impact to the exit and how fast they get to Colorado. So that's just something that we've worked with. I'm going to hurry up through some of this stuff since I know it's getting late. Ongoing construction, neighborhood engagement. This is something we just pride ourselves on doing as a small, local development. We've been sending out periodic project newsletters to the community. I think that's, our construction team has been working through that. I know it doesn't hit everyone's inbox, but we have tried to stay in front of a lot of the people that are interested in the updates. Our general contractor sends regular operations updates. And then we have direct discussions with commercial neighbors for any sort of alley disruptions as it relates to Cherry Creek Grill. That was obviously very important because the last thing we want to do is impact local business. So we hit that dead on, and I think I'm really proud of our team for continuing to stay in front of that. And then lastly, our superintendent has always been very focused on making sure there's any complaints. We want to nail it right out of the gates, and I think that's one of the things that our team has done really well, and that just underscores the importance of having a great general contractor for these projects. All right, so this is a rendering of our lobby. We really try to think about the future of office. We really wanted this to be this hospitality-infused office project. So we spent a lot of time on the design to make sure that this lobby kind of functions as kind of a hotel lobby, where we can also future-proof it in the event that we think the neighborhood on the east side might benefit from a coffee shop. So we have built this in a way that could in the future have a coffee shop. One of the big things that we are very focused on is food and beverage and activation. There's a lot of great restaurants in Cherry Creek. There's been a lot of great progress. Cherry Creek is very sophisticated. All of a sudden, they've got a lot of great cuisine, but a lot of desire for people to frequent these amazing restaurants, and to do something really special was a big opportunity that we saw for Second and Adams. So we worked with one of the largest food operators in the country, Boca Restaurant Group out of Chicago. They have over 47 restaurants. We paired Boca Restaurant Group with Chef Brian Lockwood. He is a Boulder native, and I will just quickly go through his background. He learned cooking from Chef Thomas Keller at the French Laundry. He basically learned all through kitchens and Michelin-starred kitchens in Europe, came back to the United States. He was chef de cuisine at Frasca Food and Wine. chef de cuisine is basically the culinary creativity behind these concepts. It's the kind of the executive, the horsepower behind the food and the execution. After that, he went to 11 Madison Park in New York City, and then opened up the Nomad Hotel with chef de cuisine at the Nomad before going back to 11 Madison Park. And as chef de cuisine at 11 Madison Park, Brian, as a Boulder native, took 11 Madison to the #1 spot of the world's 50 best restaurants. And he got them the first 3 stars of any US chef in the United States. So when we said there was a huge opportunity to do something amazing at Cherry Creek, that's what we're talking about. And Brian has been an amazing partner and helping us think through these concepts. So, moment everyone's been waiting for. We're going backwards, forward now. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but the ground floor will have 2 concepts of Varda, which is flavors of the Levant. Brian has been married to his wife for almost 20 years. She's Israeli. He is hugely passionate about Israeli food. The design has been absolutely incredible. This will front second. It is going to have, and sorry, these pictures are not great for this, but this will be about a 5,600 square foot restaurant. The other concept that Brian has been hugely passionate about his whole career is Italian. And unlike, I know that there's a lot of Italian restaurants in Denver, but what makes something Peaky, which is Italian for peaks, what makes Peaky special is this is a heavy emphasis on a very simple, fresh dish of 12 to 15 dishes. This is going to be about a 2,300 square foot restaurant with a private dining in bars that'll face Adam Street. So this has been a huge passion project to Brian for his entire career. He's never had the opportunity to do this, and someone with his accolades to bring this Israeli and kind of the Levant region and in Italian is really special. The other thing is the rooftop. This will have a 5,600 square foot rooftop. This is going to have, it's going to be more of a limited service menu. The concept is still in development, but we are really excited to unveil this. The views are going to be amazing, and this is really going to be a critical piece for the neighborhood, in our opinion, and we're incredibly excited to share this with you all. But so I guess that's it. With that, I know that was a lot, but if there's any questions, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Questions? Now that you're all hungry from what you don't. Thank you.
There.
Inside chores. Our last speaker is, for us, the connector of all of these. So Chris mentioned the Good Neighbor Agreement. Those are critical documents. So Lou Raders is our zoning chair from the board, and so she'll talk about her 24/7 job around good neighbor agreements and zoning issues.
Hi all, I know so many of you, and I do want to just have a couple of points here. On the question of the parking and what's happening and with all this free parking spaces, Annette and I have been working on this for 3 years. We are trying to keep as many restricted spaces as possible because there was a real push to get rid of some of our protected parking. We have been successful in doing that with the city, so stand by, but we are fighting to keep restrictions. It's a whole nother discussion when you talk about enforcement, but that's what we're fighting for. So in Cherry Creek North, the CCNNA Zoning and Development Group, and I was immediate past chair. I'm the chair of the steering committee right now. I'm also on the board of Transportation Solutions, which Nick mentioned, working to find possible solutions to some of our big transit problems. And tomorrow night at the steering committee, the bid did just do a study with Transportation Solutions on addressing the issues of getting employees into the district. It is a huge problem. So we have a lot of problems here, but this is still our village, and many of us have lived here for many years. We're celebrating 30 years in our house at 4th and Clayton, and before that, I lived at 4th and Cook, and I've been in this neighborhood since 1985. So, and involved in many of the changes that we've been experiencing over the years. But I have to say just one thing about show of hands. When you get to know these small businesses, and you get to know Katie and her people, this will be one of your experiences. We had a house in the mountains for many years. We got rid of it, but one time driving back on a Saturday afternoon, getting caught in traffic, I said, oh my God, we have a wedding to go to tomorrow and I don't have a present. So I get on the phone and I call show of hands. And I say, you know the things I always buy for people with the little bricks that have it? Can you find one that is sort of wedding-like? And she said, oh yeah, hold on. And then I said, so I'm stuck in this traffic. What am I gonna do? And she says, I will drop it at your house, Lou. I will wrap it for you. I will pick out a cue card and I will drop it at your house. So,
We've had a request from the folks on Zoom, so they can see you.
I thought maybe you wanted to move me out of view for the folks on Zoom. Anyway, that's what small businesses are. That's faster than Amazon, all right? And when you think about buying things on Amazon, think about the relationships and how important it is to us to be able to do that, and to them to know that we support their businesses. So just a shout out, a true story, and really, really great gifts. So, okay, now I'm gonna come back to good neighbor agreements. This is a spectrum, and I think it's when you think about good neighbor agreements, these are agreements with developers and restaurant owners, anybody who is developing in this area. They come to us, they come to the steering committee, they come to our zoning committee, and we talk to them. And Chris was so good. Now they're outside of the business district by an alley, right? They're on the other side of the alley, so they're not subject to the bid or even the design review board. So what do? We ask them to sit down with us and address issues we know are important to our neighborhood. Why? Because we've worked with you all for years. We know the complaints, we know the concerns, and we talk about those, and as Chris said, he cares about those. He cared about the attitude of the neighbors. And we ask them, so we know you're not in the business improvement district, but would you abide by the guidelines? Here are the guidelines. Yes, we will. Why? Because now it's a seamless, beautiful, pedestrian-oriented development, which they've agreed to abide by, even though they don't really have to. Then we ask them, one of the biggest issues that we have is traffic. Would you agree, and this is huge, because we got this also for Cherry Creek West for a period of time. We said, you're doing an office building. We don't want you to do medical office uses. So you're asking a developer and their lender to sign off on the fact that you're restricting what they can do in their building. Why is that important? Think about First and Cook. You have an appointment, you go in, you go out. You go in, you go out. You put lots of people in there that see patients all day. You have traffic in and out and in and out all day. Huge traffic calming is use. So when you see these developments and you think we are really encouraging residential use, why? It is the lowest traffic impact. Then you think about other uses. Office uses, which are not medical office, which are more stable, high-end financial office uses. I know some of the people going in your building, so I can say that. But you've got different uses that create impacts to the people who live 3 blocks away. So we watch for that. We ask for that. Some of these are huge asks of developers and their lenders and their investors. But these are the things that we ask in good neighbor agreements. Those are bigger. We call those really development agreements and community benefit agreements, because they agree to do those things for us. And we, on the zoning committee, look for the kinds of things that will address the issues that we hear complaints about all the time. That's why you have to know what you're doing. You have to have good relationships with developers. We have great relationships with the city. We can ask questions. We have, fortunately, retired real estate finance lawyers who sit on this committee, who are able to look at the zoning documents and know what to look for, right? If you don't live in this world, you don't know that medical office building is going to be a worse impact transit and traffic-wise than another office building. So we try to get good people to look for the kinds of issues to address them in these good neighbor agreements / development community benefit agreements. It's important. Now, the restaurant uses, we do, the bigger development agreements, we actually record those against the property, so they run with the land, it's called. And it just means that if Chris decided, oh, I'm going to go to New York because that restaurant really sounds better than the one I'm getting here. So if some developer moves out of state and they don't finish it and they sell the project as entitled, which I know you're not going to do, Chris, we know that everything that they agreed to stays with that project because we recorded it. It binds any future owner. So those are the things you look for, you draft to, you think about, you try to make sure that you're watching over this. We have in these agreements that Chris comes back and talks to us, that he keeps us updated, that he provides that information. Those are the things that make it important to have these relationships with our businesses and our developers. Every restaurant that opens in Cherry Creek that has a liquor license, and who wants to go to a restaurant that doesn't, every one of those that has outdoor space, they have to deal with me. And they have to deal with our zoning committee. Because we say to them, if you're going to have an outdoor space, we want to restrict the sound coming out of that. We want you to be sensitive to dumping bottles at 3 in the morning when you close down your restaurant and having all that clatter go into the streets and up to our wonderful neighbors who live, next to those restaurants or in the condos that are down the alley or in those apartments that are built. We ask them to make sure that sound, unlike Lodo, right? We're different. We don't want to be downtown Denver. We want to be Cherry Creek. We want to be our village. We want to be able to live here and play here and walk and enjoy these wonderful restaurants and go home and go to bed and open our window at 10 o'clock and not be disturbed by the sound. So those outdoor venues are restricted so that at 10 o'clock not on the weekends, it's midnight on the weekends, but they turn all the sound off on those outdoor spaces. Now, we want them to be successful. We're not trying to run their businesses or anything like that. We just want to have that good relationship between the neighbors, and those living in the BID are also our neighbors, and those people that live adjacent to or even blocks away. I'm at 4th and Clayton. I can hear the rooftop events sometime at the Halcyon. And I can also hear the concerts at Botanic Gardens. It's lovely. So I know that there's a lot more that we could talk about, but I think you just need to know that CCNNA watches very carefully about how we develop. We develop these good relationships. It's important. We are so lucky to have the Design Advisory Board here. Why? Because then we don't have to do it. They do it. And they do it for free just like we do it for free. I mean, we're all volunteers. And so if you value those things and you care about how this development, which will continues to grow, and we want to make sure it grows so that we are Cherry Creek through and through and not Lodo and not downtown and certainly not Manhattan, somebody mentioned. But we have our unique characteristics, and that's what we're doing as a neighborhood organization, as a registered neighborhood organization for you all. And again, shop at our small businesses, eat at our great restaurants, welcome our developers and hope for their success. And rah-rah Cherry Creek. So thank you.
And we have 30 seconds to spare. Bill. Only got
Yes.
20 now.
All right, I'll be quick. First of all, thank you very much for what you do for our neighborhood. Yeah, the whole group, and what we've heard tonight just exemplifies the value you bring to us, and it's all for free. About $40 a year. The other thing I wanted to mention, because it really hasn't been touched on, is Dottie Gone Wild, Department of Transportation. They are putting bus lanes down the middle of Colfax, which of course means all those people have to cross the street to get to the buses, which is crazy. It halves the capacity there, and that'll push all that traffic over to 13th and 14th. And what Amanda Sawyer has blessed us with this upcoming vibrant Denver bond issue is they're going to make 13th and 14th two-way streets instead of one-ways, which is going, yes, that's the plan that I heard, which will take three. I saw it on her, what she was saying that she got part of the trade. Please keep an eye on that, because if those get pushed, if the capacity gets pushed down, you know where that traffic is going to come. It's going to come to 6th and 8th and into our neighborhood.
So Bill gave a perfect example of when we bring the neighborhood, we have quarterly meetings, we really want to know what you want to talk about. So that's two perfect examples tonight of how we can really empower our own voice in this neighborhood to address those issues. And now, it's right at 8:30. I'm a teacher, so when it's time, you have to go. Thank you for being here tonight. Walk by all the social groups to make sure you're signed up. This is the most engaged neighborhood in the city. Just a little bias. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
Certainly offices, no condos.